Before I installed my immersive room with KSDs, I just had a pair of the A200s and I was doing stereo mixes. And early on, one of my clients basically shot me a text saying, wow, I don't know what you did, but like this sounds so much better. And I knew what I did. I changed out my monitors. My name is Alex Solano and I'm an immersive mix engineer. My earliest memory of loving music was holding a Walkman. When I was like 8 years old, I borrowed it from my brother and just listening to music on headphones. And then later on, that took me on a journey of learning how to play guitar and being in a band, learning production, going to school, and just really following that path of music creation. Eventually that matured and became more focused into audio engineering, which is what I've been doing over the past 8 years. Most people know me for my work in immersive audio, but I also do stereo mixes. In 2021, after Apple made the announcement of having support for immersive audio, which is Dolby Atmos, I did all my research, contacted people that I knew in Dolby and Avid, and basically got into building my own room. And since then, I've been providing Dolby Atmos mixing and immersive mixing for labels and indie artists. It's my first studio build upgraded with KSDs. So I'm used to the room, I'm used to the environment. The biggest challenge in this room was an acoustical challenge. I had to figure out a way to control the low-end buildup in the room. And so for that, I worked with an acoustician company that helped me build custom resonators for the corners. And I needed to tune the room before I put speakers into it. So part of my upgrade was to do that, to address the acoustical issues in the room before I started bringing in full-range speakers and subwoofers. With any room, you have to EQ the speaker to the room, particularly in immersive audio. But once you have that dialed in, then they give you all the information that you want, plus all the internal headroom so that you can really push them if you need to. You have to choose what's best for your room. Every room is different. There are limitations, acoustical limitations. And so when I reached out to KSD, I was able to get a couple of samples of different monitors, the A200 Mark IIs, the C55s, the C5s. So I was given an awesome opportunity to evaluate what speakers worked in my environment. And so that's how I landed on the speaker setup that I have now. The first thing that caught my eye about KSD when I saw it online was the look. They look great, and I love the cherry wood color, and they match my room and what I had here previously. But it's really about the sound. If you can't hear it, you can't address it in the mix. When I reached out to KSD, they sent me a couple of samples to test out in my studio. I fell in love with the A200s Mark II because they were three-way full-range frequency response speakers that had a lot of power. And so I just started doing stereo mixes on them and noticed that there was a significant improvement in the translation. Making half a dB changes to like vocals was now noticeable. They're very transparent and also very revealing. For the A200s, they are definitely bass prominent. Not bass heavy or hyped, but they give you all the information that you want on your low end. They have a lot of SPL, which basically means if I'm EQing something aggressively, they're not gonna distort or cut out or blow up, you know? You can really abuse them if you need to, the headroom is there. So I knew that I needed my front wall to be completely solid and give me all the power that I need, especially for immersive mixing for drum space. Once we got the A200s installed for the front wall and we had the whole system installed, when I was working with Dolby on tuning the room, the question came up, which is, do you want to do bass management? And to be honest with you, we said no, because the A200s give you so much low-end information that I didn't need to offset those sub-frequencies to a subwoofer, to 2 subwoofers, which I have in my room. So this is the first time that I've had a non-bass managed Atmos room and it sounds phenomenal. So that means that my subwoofers are strictly for the LFE channel. And so having this type of workflow, again, gives me the confidence that I know what the speakers are telling me is true, and then I can make informed decisions about how I want to use the LFE. And then for the surrounds, the C55s work great because they're very directional. One of the early things that I noticed was when I moved instruments and vocals around the listening environment, around the surround environment, I was beginning to hear like pops and clicks and mouth noises. So it informed me on addressing those things in the mix. Things that got masked in the stereo mix were now like exposed and revealed in the immersive environment because of the KSDs. So having that information as an engineer was super important so that I can address that and eliminate those distractions from a musical experience. Surprisingly, all the different KSD models sound similar. Whether placing something in front of me or around me or above me, the first experience that I had was panning an instrument from the left and right channels to the ceiling speakers and wondering if they were even on. because they sounded so similar. When I pan something next to me or behind me or above me, I'm not losing any tonal quality. And then for the ceiling speakers, the C5s were a no-brainer because of their compact size, but they're still full range. So I wasn't missing out on any frequency range or SPL by having the smaller speakers. I made my decision based on sound ultimately, but the specs, as far as the SPL performance, full frequency response, that was also important, especially for immersive mixing. Because with immersive mixing, typically you have to compromise on using smaller sets of speakers in the surrounds or in the ceilings because there's no, full range speakers that you're going to hang from your ceiling. So that's what bass management comes into play. But with the KSDs, like I noticed that when I was testing out the C10s and the C55s, they were all full frequency range. So I was pretty shocked. They're more directional. You can hear specifically where they're coming from. Even though in an immersive environment, you're not supposed to hear the speaker, this tells me specifically where I'm panning something and placing something spatially, which is really important because in translation, you don't want to place something that's going to be distracting for the listener in the wrong location. You want to create a seamless listening environment. And so having all that detailed information from the studio monitors allows me to make creative decisions and informed decisions of where I'm going to place things in the mix. At this point, I have quite a bit of experience of doing immersive mixes, and the upgrade was a significant piece of me providing that service to all my clients. After having done tons of mixes, immersive mixes for indie artists and labels, my most favorite project is the Devin Gabriela EP, which is called The Garden. And that was done for BMG. What was different about this EP than other work that I've done, it was that I now have the experience knowing what to expect when I move things in the room. And I took a different approach. Instead of placing, for example, acoustic guitars just to the side speakers or to the rear speakers, I used up mixers to have this very solid, dense 5/1 bed for the rhythm section. And then that freed up the other elements of the mix of the arrangement, like lead guitars, synths, background voices, put those into objects and begin to elevate them in the room. So what you get is you get this very seamless, immersed mix where nothing sticks out, but everything is just working together. And that's what I really like about the Devin Gabriela. Also, the musicianship and the production was just so well done that it gave its way to immersive. I recommend for any pro audio engineer or musician or producer or artist who wants to get into immersive to just start playing around with the software, put on a pair of headphones, play with the renderer, figure out what the binaural settings do, but then take that mix and bring it into a room because you'll be surprised of what things translate and what things don't translate. So if I was an independent pro audio engineer and people were hiring me to do the service, I would do as much as I can or could on headphones, but then rent a room, a Dolby room, a Dolby Atmos studio, and check the mixes there and finalize the mixes there because you'll be surprised that the speaker reproduction of sound will tell you different information than what you can get out of headphones.